Hi friends, welcome back to the Story Highway, where every story is a journey through the heart. Today's tale is about waiting, hope, and the unexpected ways life brings people together. This is the man who waited at the station. At the edge of Chicago stood an old train station called Maple Ridge, a place most people pass through without ever noticing. But for Henry Walsh, it was the only place where life still made sense. Every morning for nearly 20 years, he sat on the same iron bench, holding the same faded photograph of a woman named Laura, his wife who vanished after a terrible accident on the icy highway. One December night, leaving behind only questions and a silence that swallowed the whole house. And while people told him to move on, Henry believed that things lost in this world sometimes found their way home. So he came to the station every day, rain, snow, heat, with a packed lunch and a thermos of coffee, whispering to himself, "Maybe today," until locals began calling him the Sitting Soul. Some pitied him, some admired him, but no one truly understood the weight of his waiting until, one cold evening, a young woman named Clara Dawson, a college student studying psychology, missed her train and sat beside him, watching him stare at the tracks as if they were the last lines of a story he was afraid to read. And when she finally asked, "Sir, why do you wait here every day?" Henry gently handed her the photograph, his trembling voice saying, "I'm waiting for my wife to come home." She boarded a train that never arrived, and Clara, touched by the fragile hope in his words, returned the next day, and the next, until listening to Henry became part of her life. She learned how he and Laura met in Colorado as teenagers, how they married young, built a life full of road trips and laughter, and how everything changed the night Laura went to visit her sister and never returned because witnesses claimed she boarded a train heading east, but no record ever proved she arrived anywhere, leaving Henry to chase shadows for decades. Then one snowy afternoon, Clara brought Henry a newspaper clipping about a woman found years ago in a small Wisconsin town, suffering from memory loss, unable to identify herself, taken in by a nursing home, known only as Grace. Henry's heart pounded, his hands shaking as he whispered, "Laura." And though Clara warned him it might be a misunderstanding, Henry insisted they go. So they boarded a train, his first in years, and traveled north, the journey long and quiet, filled with the unspoken fear that hope might break him. When they reached the nursing home, an elderly nurse said, "Grace rarely speaks, but she paints trains, hundreds of them," and she led them to a room covered in watercolor paintings of stations, tracks, winter roads, memories trapped in color. And there, sitting quietly by a window, was a frail woman whose hair had turned white, whose eyes seemed lost in a world only she could see. When Henry stepped closer and whispered, "Laura, it's me," she didn't respond at first, just stared at him with soft confusion. But when he showed her the old photograph, the same one he carried to the station for 20 years, her fingers trembled, touching it gently, and a single tear slipped down her cheek. She whispered one broken word, "Henry?" And his knees almost gave out as he hugged her, decades of grief melting at once. Though Laura remembered little, something in her heart recognized the man who never stopped waiting, and he whispered, "I found you," to which she quietly replied, "You never left." Clara watched from the doorway, tears streaming down her face, realizing she had witnessed a miracle born from patience, love, and unwavering belief. Henry brought Laura home to Chicago, caring for her with the same devotion he carried to the train station all those years. And slowly, pieces of her memory returned to small things, warm things, the sound of his laughter, the smell of pine from their Christmas cabin, the way he held her hand during storms. The townspeople who once saw Henry as a lonely dreamer now saw him as a reminder that hope isn't foolish, it's courageous. And whenever someone asked why he kept waiting all those years, Henry smiled and said, "Because love doesn't disappear. Sometimes it just gets lost on the way." This was The Man Who Waited at the Station, a story about faith, love, and the incredible strength of a heart that refuses to give up. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to The Story Highway, where every tale reminds us that some journeys are worth every mile.